And good afternoon, Susan. Did you survive Groundhog Day?
I did. Yeah, Groundhog Day happens not far from where I live.
That's right. You're in Pennsylvania. It's what, Puxatawny Phil in Puxatawny, PA? Is that where he is?
Yep.
How far to Puxatawny from where you are?
Well, it's one of those places that you can't get there from here. Uh, as the crow flies, it's probably only about a half an hour, but driving is probably closer to an hour because there's just not a direct route from here to there because
All
it's in the
right.
somewhere.
All right. And you're not buried in snow, so that's good. All
No,
right.
it's been really mild.
It's going to be 59 here on Saturday. So, you want
Yeah.
to hear what we're going to try to talk about today?
Yeah, what's on the agenda?
Well, it's the Jersey Joe Show. Today's February 6th. It's news and perspective you won't hear on TV. And actually, I've got something really disturbing, a couple of things, but one of them that you didn't hear on TV that you should have heard about. And we're going to talk about why you didn't hear about it on TV. Anyway, you know who Plato was, right? The Greek
Yep.
philosopher.
Yep.
Well, our quote of the week's from Plato on what happens to us when we ignore politics. And our stupidest thing of the week that I've heard all week, just like last week, we have three contenders. You're gonna have to pick the winner. We have three nominees. The first one, we're gonna tell you who has declared pregnancy to be a disease. Can you imagine the saying that pregnancy is now should be classified as a disease? uh, and the second, we'll tell you about some homeowners who are suing the city to force the city to close down a baseball park next to their brand new home. So you have people bought brand new, never lived in homes, bought them right next to the baseball park. They can't pretend they didn't see the baseball park. And now that they moved in, they want the city to close down the baseball park.
Yep, I believe I
Um,
sent you that one.
right. And our third nominee is a congresswoman claiming that the reason Walgreens is closing one of the stores in her district is driven by racism and not economics. So I'll play the clip of her making that claim, and you can pick the winner. In another sad example of the mental decline of President Biden, we'll play a clip of him from the other day where he talks about a meeting he had last year with a person who's been dead for 25 years. Literally, he said, well, I sat down and I'll tell you who he named, and I said to him, blah, blah, blah. The person he claimed to have talked to in 2021, shortly after his inauguration, has been dead for 25 years. So no, Joe, that's not the person you talked to. We'll tell you why the construction of new wind turbines is responsible for massive increases in CO2 emissions. Um, Here's one for you. How long do you think the typical Olympic athlete is the career of a typical Olympic athlete? How many, you have an Olympics every 4 years. So if you're a gymnast, maybe you do three, right? You do the first one when you're
Mhm.
16, you do the next one when you're 20, and you do your last one when you're 24, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
best case, you do three. Well, we're going to tell
Best.
you about
Yeah.
a U.S. Olympic athlete who's getting ready to compete in her eighth Olympics and what sport she competes in. She holds the record for having the longest Olympic career of any U.S. athlete. We'll tell you about a recent NLRB, National Labor Relations Board ruling that will allow student athletes to unionize. And I think I shared this with you, and you were kind of outraged since you're pretty involved in student
Yep.
athletics.
Yep.
And we'll tell you, when we do our taxpayer relief shots, we always talk about when seconds count, the police are minutes away.
Yep.
Well, we'll tell you exactly how many minutes that is if you're in New York City and you call the police with a top priority crime in progress. We'll tell you how long it takes for the police to get there.
Mhm.
And in that related story, our taxpayer relief shot comes to us from Salem, Indiana, where a man in a house shoots and kills another guy who was stabbing the residents of the home. Can you imagine? 911, can you send the police? There's a guy here with a knife stabbing people. Can you imagine
Mhm.
if you had to wait
Yeah.
for the police to show up?
Yeah.
All right. All right. You ready for the quote of the week?
What's the quote of the week from Plato?
He said, the price good men pay for indifference to public affairs, and you can say politics, is to be ruled by evil men. And
Mhm.
I'm going to modify that. I'm saying the price good men pay for indifference, instead of men, I'm going to say people, good people, because women vote. The price good people pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil or incompetent men.
Mhm.
So what do you think? He said evil, but times have changed.
Yeah, and Plato lived how long ago, and it's
They're
still
like
relevant today.
200 BC or something like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
nothing has changed over the centuries.
but yeah, over 20 centuries, the price good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men.
Hmm.
All right. So let's get on to our three contenders for the stupidest thing I've heard all week. The first one, this is from a paper written in a very respected medical journal called the Journal of Medical Ethics.
Mhm.
It's two doctors from Norway, and here's their argument. They say in this paper, and this is a quote, in this paper, we identify some key features of what makes something a disease and consider whether these apply to pregnancy. We argue that there are some compelling grounds for regarding pregnancy as a disease. Like a disease, pregnancy can be treated medically. Like a disease, this is the killer line here. Like a disease, pregnancy is caused by a pathogen, an external organism invading the host's body. Now, as a woman, do you think that's ridiculous?
It is ridiculous. And it also brings up a really good argument for these states that are saying, that are anti-abortion. But if you had a parasite, they would treat you.
Yes.
But if you're pregnant, they refuse to treat you. So that brings up a really good argument for these
Yeah.
states.
Yeah, but to claim that pregnancy is caused by a pathogenic external organism invading the host's body, talk about bizarre logic. Anyway, before you give your opinion whether that's the winner or not, let's go on to the second one. And you sent me this one.
Yep.
The second one is about some homeowners, I think 5 or 6 of them. They're suing to shut down a town park. So back in 1990, which was 33 years ago, the town of Bernardsville in New Jersey, very upscale area, leased some unused land that the city owned to a nonprofit organization to build build a park with 4 baseball diamonds so that the town youths could play on. They had tournaments, they have softball, they had little league, they had the Pee Wee League. When you get into baseball, you have all these different age brackets. Well, anyway, 30 years later, 2021, a developer built some adjacent land and built, I believe, $6 million plus homes on some adjacent lands that bordered the park. And those people willingly bought those $1 million homes, fully aware of the fact that the homes bordered the baseball park. So now what have those new home buyers done? Why, they've sued the town to close down the baseball activities, of course. And here's a quote from the story. In December, the Bernards Township Committee renewed the Ridge Baseball Club's lease on the park for another 20 years. Those 5 new households and 3 other neighboring properties are suing the town, upset with the seasonal activities of youth baseball at fields they live across from. Plaintiffs, well, a bunch of names, who own the new houses, said the following, that the fields amount to a public nuisance. It's not like people, they buy homes next to an airport and then they complain because of the noise of the plane.
Or around here, the people who buy their property next to a farm and then complain about the smell.
About the smell. So, classic, like it wasn't that they put a big canvas tarp over the baseball and you couldn't see there were 4 baseball diamonds. You knew there were 4 baseball diamonds there. And by the way, and you only play baseball, what, 3, 4 months of the year? It's not like they're
It's a
playing
spring
baseball.
sport. Spring, summer.
Yeah. And so
They're not playing in the middle of the night, disrupting your sleep.
and they're not playing November, December, January, February, March, So this is and it's like, you're right, it's daytime, Pee Wee leagues are not playing games at 9, 10 o'clock at night under the lights. So anyway.
And to these teenagers that are playing Little League or whatever league ball they're in, if they didn't have this outlet, they might be getting into mischief.
Yeah, they might be burglarizing your house, they might be robbing store. Anyway, so that was the first 2. Now here's the third. Now, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, she's a Black woman she's the one with the shaved head, the bald head. She's from a area of Boston. She represents Boston, radical left-wing, screaming liberal. Anyway, Walgreens, by the way, has been closing stores. Walgreens has announced the closure of 450 stores in the US this year. Well, they started last year with a total. They announced way ahead of time, these stores are losing money, high crime, shoplifting, they're getting robbed at gunpoint, and they're just not profitable.
Can't blame them.
Can't blame them. So one of them happens to be in her district, Roxborough, which is a suburb of Boston. And here's her take She says, no, this isn't for economic reasons. They are targeting because they're racist. And here's her claim. Here we go.
Speaker, Walgreens is planning to close yet another pharmacy in the Massachusetts 7th, this time on Warren Street in Roxbury, a community that is 85% Black and Latino. This closure is a part of a larger trend of abandoning low-income communities like the previous closures in Mattapan and Hyde Park, both in the Massachusetts 7th. When a Walgreens leaves a neighborhood, they disrupt the entire community, and they take with them baby formula, diapers, asthma inhalers, life-saving medications, and of course, jobs. These closures are not arbitrary and they are not innocent. They are life-threatening acts of racial and economic discrimination.
There's more, but so
The only thing I'll agree with her is that they're not innocent. These, I am sure that Walgreens' decision is based on profit and loss statements.
Right, but I'm going to back it up. But she's saying, no, that's not what, I'm going to back this up 15 seconds. That's not what she's saying. She's saying there's a completely different.
Yeah, no, I get what she's saying, and I have to just, I mean,
here we go.
Threatening acts of racial and economic discrimination. That is why I joined with Senator.
All right, again, one more time.
They are life-threatening acts of racial and economic discrimination.
She's saying they are life-threatening acts of economic and racial discrimination. That's her take on this. Here we go.
That is why I joined with Senator Markey and Warren to demand answers from Walgreens CEO. Why was there no community input, no adequate notice to customers, and no transition resources to prevent gaps in healthcare? Shame on you, Walgreens. Having a website with talking points about health equity and underserved communities is not enough. Walgreens is a multi-billion-dollar corporation that needs to put their money where their mouth is and stop divesting from Black and brown communities.
So you get, so there she is. She's saying, no, economics has nothing to do with it. This is motivated purely by
I'm
racial.
sure on Walgreens' side, it is all economics, profit and loss statements.
No CEO in his right mind would close a profitable store.
Exactly.
But she's saying, no, they're doing this on purpose because they don't like brown people, Black people of color. So you got three to pick.
Doubt that.
You got three to pick from: is pregnancy a disease, people demanding and suing the town to make them close the ballparks, or Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley saying Walgreens closes stores because they're racist bigots. Which one is the?
I got to go with the one I sent you because, you know, unless these people were blind, had a visual disability, they knew they were buying their property next door to a baseball field.
Right. You know, I'm torn. These three are so close. I mean, really, I'm going to let the listeners, I'll take votes on this one. But talk about grandstanding. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, talk about grandstanding. Oof, I shake my head. I wonder if she really believes that, or if she's just making this a political. So, you know, here's I wonder if she actually believes that the other 450 stores Walgreens is planning on closing are also simply the result of racism, or if the other 449 are being closed for simple economic reasons, and they just decided to pick just that one store in her district because they don't like people of color. So what do you think? Are the other 450 being closed for racial reasons or because they weren't?
No, I'm sure that Walgreens' decision is based purely on P&L statements.
Yep, income. All right.
And that's their prerogative as a business owner.
As a business, right. But they actually literally have a fiduciary obligation to their shareholders to do that. Mm-hmm. They and the board of directors have if they don't take a necessary and needed steps to preserve the value of their stockholders' money, they're actually in violation of their fiduciary obligation. All right.
I think I sent you a clip the other day too about, with all these stores that are locking their stuff up, and you're seeing this in Walgreens and CVS, they're locking up the items of high value, but they're not locking up the criminals that are stealing these high value items.
They're instead of locking up the product, they should be locking up the thieves. Right. All right. Here's a really sad one. This is Biden. He was giving a talk the other day. And the incident he's talking about was the G7, his first G7 meeting after he became president. Remember, he was sworn in January 20th of 21. I think he attended the G7 meeting a few months later. And I'm going to play this little clip. He tells a story about talking to President Mitterrand. First, he refers to him as the president of Germany. He was actually the president of France. But in 2021, Mitterrand had been dead for 25 years. So here's Biden talking about telling Mitterrand something, even though Mitterrand has been dead for 25 years at the time this supposedly took place. Here we go.
I went to what they call a G7 meeting, all the NATO leaders. And it was in the south of England. And I sat down and I said, America's back. And Mitterrand from from France looked at me and said, you know, why, how long are you back for? And I looked at him, and the Chancellor of Germany said, what would you say, Mr. President, if you picked up the paper tomorrow in the London Times, and the London Times said, 1,000 people break through the House of Commons, break down the doors, 2 bobbies are killed in order to stop the election of the Prime Minister. What would you say? I never thought about it from that perspective. What would we say if that happened in another democracy around the world? Well, the whole world watched. The whole world watched.
So again, Mitterrand has been dead for 25 years. So first he refers to him as
Maybe
the
he
president.
did have a conversation in his head with this person.
Well,
Maybe
first he
was a
calls him
little
right.
delusional and had a
First he
conversation.
calls him the president of Germany, and then he corrects himself. No, he was the president of France. Well, no, he wasn't the president of France, not in 2021 when you claimed you talked to him.
and
And by
not
the way,
for 25 years.
when he talks about 2 bobbies being killed, he's trying to claim that 2 Capitol police officers were killed. Not a single Capitol police officer was killed on January 6th, not one. They didn't die. Nobody died on January 6th, and nobody died. Now, did some guy die of an aneurysm? Did some guy
Yes.
commit suicide? But yeah,
Yes.
no Capitol police officer died as a result of a homicide by anything done by anybody who entered the Capitol. So even there, I don't know if he believes that the January people who entered the Capitol building on January 2nd literally killed these people, but no, it never happened.
I've
So
also never heard it referred to as the south of England, only the south of France.
South French, yeah, he's mixing up France and England and Germany. So now here's the saddest part. I actually, before we came on air, I actually did a search. I searched, Biden, Mitterrand, and other than Fox News, there's not a single other network carried the story. Now, last week when Trump inadvertently mixed up and he referred to Nikki Haley as Nancy Pelosi,
Yeah.
I checked that too. Every single network broadcast,
Mhm.
CNN, and then the press, New York Times, Boston Globe, Washington Post, you could not find a news outlet, video or print, that didn't cover Biden mixing up Haley and Pelosi. Do you think a single one other than Fox covered Biden
I
referring?
mean, in my opinion, I think they're both getting a little delusional. Neither one of them should be president.
I agree, but in terms of media bias, don't you think?
Oh, media bias, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, when Biden mistakes, when he maybe inadvertently refers to Haley as Pelosi, that's national news. When
Mhm.
Biden claims he had a conversation with a guy who's been dead for 20 years, the press didn't think that was worth covering. So,
There's not many Americans who probably know, unless you're in politics, who know who the current or former president of France or prime minister, previous or current of England is.
well, I know well, the point is, but you're the president of the United States. You
If
ought to
you're the
know.
president of the United States as that role, you should damn well know who they are,
Yes, you should damn well know.
especially when you're talking to them at a G summit.
All right. Anyway, you want to talk about U.S. Olympians?
Yeah, let's talk about them.
So you want to guess what sport that the same woman has been competing in? She's going on her 8th Olympics, which will make this her 24th year as an
Wow.
Olympic competitor. You want to guess what sport she's in?
Actually, I do know this. She's in skeet shooting.
Skeet and trap shooting. She's a 6-time Olympic medalist. She's won 33 World Gold Cup, 13 silver, 12 bronze, world champions, trap and skeet. So there's a little trivia for you. The woman who has competed in the most Olympics, it's a U.S. and she's the only one. this summer, she will have competed in her 8th Olympics, which is a record for any Olympic athlete. Her name is Kimberly Rhode, Rhode, if you want to Google her. Kimberly Rhode, Rhode, which I
Mhm.
think is quite an amazing feat.
Yeah.
To have an Olympic career that spans 24 years.
Mhm.
You'll never see a gymnast with a 24-year Olympic career, right? All right.
No.
Now I know you graduated Penn State and you
Yep.
still go. You have a lot of contact
Yep.
with some of the sports teams here. Well,
Yep.
the men's basketball team in Dartmouth College up in New Hampshire petitioned the NLRB to form a union, and the college said they can't form a union because they're not employees.
Mhm.
And the NLRB came back and said, yeah, we think they really are. So yeah, you guys can unionize. So that could have been one of my stupidest things I've heard all week. What do you think about the NLRB saying, yep, you're employees?
Yeah,
and
they're not employees. They do certainly have benefits that to them, as
Sure.
many of them are on scholarship, and they do have extra privileges provided to them as student athletes. But in recent years, the NCAA has passed a ruling that does say that student athletes now can benefit from what's called NIL, and that's name, image, and likeness.
Sure.
So if
and
you are one of these top athletes, you can now sell and profit from your
And
name
I'm-
being on jerseys, or your image or your likeness being used. You now are an entity that can profit from yourself.
and I'm absolutely fine with that. But to
Yeah,
say,
absolutely.
you're an employee of the college, and by the way,
No.
you're an employee of the college that only works 3 months of the year and a couple of days a week.
Well, that I'll argue, because those athletes do, they're working
Yeah.
out 12 months a year.
Okay.
But
Well, the point is, but to say, and you can union, I mean, I just think, don't know where this is going to go, but I think the NLRB has gone way too far.
Yeah.
In their definition, because now they're saying that Uber drivers, as an example, who are free to work and not work. I mean, if they want to work for 90 minutes and say, yeah, I'm not turning off my, I'm dropping out. I got something to say that an Uber driver is an employee, not an
They're
independent contractor.
contractors.
They're
They
independent.
are the definition of a contract worker.
They provide their own, they
And
set
that
their
is,
own,
athletes are not contract workers, by the way.
right.
I would not classify them as I would an Uber
Well,
driver.
that's Biden's NLRB, just so people, again, you probably didn't hear that on TV. That's why we call it news perspective. You won't hear on TV.
And I'm glad, though, by the way, that athletes can now profit from NIL, because if they're not profiting from NIL, the college is profiting from NIL. So it's, these students.
I'm all for that, and I think the NLRB should have stayed the hell out of this. How much time we got?
Let's see. We've got, where's my clock? You got about 10 minutes.
Okay, so we can take a little more time. So
Yep.
before we do our taxpayer relief shot, we always talk about when the seconds count, police are minutes away. Well,
Yep.
Last week, the New York City Police Department released its updated police response time to what they call a number one priority call, which is a crime in progress call, which means get here right away. There's a crime happening right now.
And we're talking murders, rapes, violent.
Murders, rapes, assault, somebody's being beaten, somebody sees somebody beating somebody, kicking them on the ground, and a bystander calls 911, say, quick, this guy's beating this guy, is kicking him in the head. 16 minutes and 12 seconds.
Yeah.
16. And unfortunately, that's not unique. I think Denver, the last time I looked, Denver was like 10 minutes. So this is not unique to New York City. And that's why I'm saying, at the end of the day, you are the person who is primarily responsible for your own safety and those around you. If you think that the police, and by the way, the Supreme Court has already ruled in a case about 15 years ago, I think it was Gonzalez versus the town of Castle Rock, that the police do not have any legal obligation to protect you. In that case, Gonzalez v. Castle Rock, an ex-husband who had a restraining order came into his ex-wife's house and killed a bunch of people. And the surviving relatives of the people he killed sued the Castle Rock Police Department for not protecting them from this guy that had the restraining order. And the Castle Rock Police said, we haven't, even though it says protect and serve on the card, we have no legal obligation to keep you safe. Went all the way to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, yeah, they actually don't, because number one, it's impossible. It is impossible unless they assign somebody to follow you around. They cannot keep you safe. regardless of what's printed on the side of the car.
Mhm.
So anyway, 16 minutes and 12 seconds if you're one of the 7 million people that live in New York City and you call 911, come quick. By the way, now that New York City has to, even though it's tough to get a concealed carry permit, at least if you live in the city, you can now buy a gun and have it in your house.
Mhm.
So if it were me, I'd want to carry a gun, but even if you don't carry a gun, you live in New York City, I think you're foolish not to own a gun because somebody breaks in your house and you hear them trying to smash down. So you hear somebody trying to break your door, you run and hide in the bathroom.
Mhm.
It's going to be 16 minutes till the police get there. So you better have something more in your cell phone hand when he breaks your bathroom door down. All right, you want to move on to our taxpayer relief shot?
Yeah.
All right, and for those who haven't heard these before, here's why we call it. The Sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida, explained to you why we call them taxpayer relief shots. Here we go. Come on.
If somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
And since we have the time, let me tell you how about Sheriff Grady Judd feels about him.
I would highly suggest that if a looter breaks into your home, comes into your home while you're there to steal stuff, that you take your gun and you shoot him. You shoot him so that he looks like grated cheese.
And last but not least, my favorite.
But we have received information on social media that some of the criminals were going to take this criminal conduct into the neighborhoods. I would tell them, if you value your life, you probably shouldn't do that in Polk County. Because the people of Polk County like guns. They have guns. I encourage them to own guns. And they're going to be in their homes tonight with their guns loaded. And if you try to break into their homes to steal, to set fires, I'm highly recommending they blow you back out of the house with their guns.
I just love that, blow you back out of their house with their guns.
Yeah.
Oh, which is your favorite of those three? The grated cheese, blow you back out of the house, or
I think
save
he meant to say Swiss cheese, but
Right.
yeah.
All right. Anyway, so let's go to our Salem, Indiana. And again, this is where the 16 minutes is very, very important. Here we go.
Deadly shooting in southern Indiana is now being called justified, and the man taken into custody will not be charged. It happened just after midnight Sunday at a house on North College Avenue in Salem. The prosecutor now says that Blake Henry acted in self-defense when he shot and killed Jacob Mitchell. Investigation found that Mitchell hit Henry and a woman in the house repeatedly and also shattered a glass cabinet in a fit of rage. Police say Mitchell was charging at Henry when he fired the shots. Police also say that Henry immediately called 911 and was giving commands to those trying to save Mitchell's life. Henry was released from custody.
So, a guy with a knife hitting you in the head, hitting your wife in the head, gets shot, and the police said, "Yep, dead right there, justifiable homicide." Any argument with that one?
No.
All right. Any comment? Anything else we talked about today?
I think, we were talking about the 16 minutes in New York City, and when, minutes count, or when seconds count, the police are minutes away. I want people to think about when you hear that glass break in the middle of the night and you pick up the phone and call 911, how much time does it take that person to actually enter your house and do bodily harm to you and leave before the police get there?
I mean, before the operator says, "What's your name and where you're calling from?"
Yeah.
He's, that person's already standing next to your bed.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, at that point, they're going to knock the phone out of your hand and it's going to be all over.
Yeah.
So, and particularly if you live out in a rural area, a lot of
Mhm.
people, don't live, well, I don't know which is worse. If you live in the middle of a big city, it's 16 minutes. And if you live out in the country where I lived for a long time,
Yeah.
it was 20 minutes. I didn't live in a big city,
Yeah.
but I lived in just a, what do they call it?
Non-incorporated.
Non-incorporated.
Mhm.
And, we had at night, there was maybe 6 deputies for the whole county. So you'd be lucky to see a sheriff's deputy in 20 minutes if you called. Anyway.
Yeah, and most of the places in Pennsylvania outside of Philly and Pittsburgh, Scranton area and the Harrisburg area, most of the
rural.
towns
Yeah.
around here don't have police. It's the state police, and the state
Or
police
county,
barracks
county sheriff.
or county sheriff.
Yeah.
Our state police barracks is about 20 miles from here.
I remember where my
I
mother.
do have, in my town, I do have local police, but outside the neighboring town doesn't have police. It's the
Where
it's the state police.
Where my mother lived in Pennsylvania, they didn't have any town police. It was a county sheriff.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I'm sure that's true of some places in New Jersey, in the
Yep.
farm area, the northwestern part and the southwestern part, they're
Yep.
just little unincorporated towns where they don't have a police force. They have either a sheriff or they rely on state police.
That's probably more the norm than the exception. Anyway,
Yeah.
before we run out of time, anything else you want to add?
Nope. Hey, who you rooting for this weekend?
Got to root for the Kansas City Chiefs. I bought a $20 ticket for them to win the Super Bowl back in the second week of September. And if they win, it's going to pay me $360. So I've got to root for the Chiefs. Anyway,
That was some pretty long odds all the way back then.
back then, hey, you gotta go with your gut. Anyway, by the way, I also put $20 on the Eagles. I said it's going to be one or the other. So the Eagles, that's $20 I'll never see again. But
Even though I'm from Pennsylvania, I just can't root for a Philadelphia team.
I hear you. All right. Anyway, I want to thank all of you who listen to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about the things I find of interest and importance. And I hope you found them as interesting and important as I did. And if so, hope you continue to listen in the weeks and months to come. If you want to see some of the materials and story links you heard me talk about today, you can find them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeejoe.com, with Jersey being spelled J-E-R as in Robert, Z as in zebra, E-E, jerzeejoe.com. If you want to send me an email with a comment, question, or suggest your show topic or your vote on the stupidest thing I've heard all week, just send that to joe@jerzeejoe.com. And other than that, producer Susan, unless you have anything else, I'll sign off and
Well,
talk to you next
I'd be
week.
curious to know what other people hear that are stupid throughout the week.
I want to hear their votes on the 3 we nominated this week. Anyway, talk to you next week, producer Susan. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.